Ashes swirled in the air, a reddish hue casting an eerie glow on the ravaged landscape. The once thriving colony now lay in ruin, a testament to the brutal conflict that had ravaged the terrain. Captain Amara Ryder's boots kicked up small fragments of debris as she strode through the devastation, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of enemy movement. Her deep breath filled the tense air as she surveyed the battlefield. The remnants of their fleet's defending ships lay strewn about, some ablaze, their wreckage a stark reminder of the losses they had sustained. Amara's comms device crackled to life. The voice of her second-in-command, Commander Jax Marcel, transmitted over the static. "Captain, we have infiltrated the enemy's comms array. Intel suggests they are concentrating their forces near the old research facility. We think there might be crucial data on the Aurora project." Amara's thoughts flashed to their own research on the project and the secrets it might hold. The Aurora project was a high-stakes endeavor aimed at harnessing the power of a recently discovered celestial body. The discoveries they made might change their world's destiny, make their species the master of the universe. With a deep breath, Amara focused on the present. "All right, gather the team. We'll take point on securing that facility. Get the recon drone online and we'll sweep the area for hostiles." As the sounds of gunfire and alarms faded into the distance, Amara knew that their world had never been stronger. Their leadership had wavered under the strain of constant threat, and even that was an illusion. Amara wondered if she was the puppeteer pushing their strings, someone pulling the delicate balance of power and responsibility. Suddenly, a light flash had arrested the edge of perception, a grim revelation thrust fiercely before her. Their enemies were back. The once practiced team in their ranks now lacked the composure of practiced veterans. They frantically clawed to find their footing once more, the very ground shaking beneath their feet. Camaraderie redefined, enemies faced off. Tensions rose like a poisonous storm when shifting allegiances threatened the very balance that had kept their fragile peace intact. They were at a point of no return. That explosion could release everything, leaving no room to fight or strategize. Time suspended after the explosion, hanging in the balance between chaos and resolve. Then, in a maelstrom of broken glass, severed wires, and shattered ground, the world sprang to life. The detonation reverberated, scorching air, and sent reeling the once coordinate group. Her boots still on the ground, Amara took a tentative step forward, the landscape crumbling, until she raised her eyes to scan upward. Their once promising journey had progressed. Blinding, deadly radiation swirled from the very crater left by their explosion, an inferno that cast its caustic light upon something in the depths of her gut, an object she'd not yet dared to acknowledge. Darkness yawned open before the new breach, for in that moment it dawned. The very base of her doubts began to dissolve, doubt's whispered promise that her command was but a fragile construct, a chimera propped against an inescapable tide. The explosive shock that coursed beneath her heart, a beat out of sync with the universe, threatened to reclaim all their lost ground, searing her confidence and eroding the shaky bonds that bound the struggling survivors. With time slipping away, her resolve strengthened for a moment. Thoughts snapped back into focus, and her head shot forward, instinct guiding her feet into methodical motion. Foot after foot hurtled against unforgiving terrain, yet it was here, amidst ruin and disaster, that she spotted it. An armored command post straddled something, a lone sentinel of concrete, proudly shielding its prisoner. Amidst the heavy wreckage, a cold breeze buffeted the ruinously damaged terrain, cold, unforgiving as it reached. Every breath felt a dash of frost upon her skin as fear clawed not at the new shadow introduced, but the shattered remnants they'd once deemed secure. A fresh understanding filled their team was crumbling. When the dust of chaos finally settled, she realized there was reason to tremble. Her heart not once but twice, once with certainty, once numbed by reluctance, she sprinted toward the shelter of her shield, discharging emotions threatening to consume her. Behind trembling skin and trembling hands lay a chasm knowing to resist as she could was the greatest disservice for her trusted comrades' camaraderie redefined. Enemies faced off. Tensions rose like a poisonous storm when shifting allegiances threatened the very balance that had kept their fragile peace intact. They were at a point of no return. The room fell silent as the team stood frozen, each member weighing their options. Ambassador Alara Vex stood tall, her icy gaze piercing the air, daring anyone to take a step back. "We can't afford to wait," she said, her voice steady. "The Aurora Project is at the heart of our mission. We need to secure that data and ensure it's in the right hands. But at what cost?" Dr. Zhang, a quiet voice in the back, asked, his eyes scanning the room. "We're risking the lives of our crew just to get our hands on some information that might not be worth the cost." Amara stepped forward, her eyes locked on Dr. Zhang. "We've come too far to turn back now. We owe it to the ones who perished in the first place to see this through. We'll discuss the details later, but for now let's focus on securing that facility." Jax's voice cut through the debate, his words laced with skepticism. "Easy to say, Captain, but I'm not sure we can trust each other anymore. We've seen their kind before cunning, willing to do whatever it takes to get ahead. They'll stop at nothing, and if we're not careful, we're all in their crosshairs." Amara's expression remained calm, but a subtle smile creased the corners of her mouth. "I know Jax's eyes are on the prize, but sometimes you have to think about the bigger picture. The Aurora Project could be our key to unlocking the secrets of the cosmos. We can't afford to let that fall into the wrong hands." A wave of agreement rippled through the team, but beneath the surface, emotion simmered. Grudges were held, and with the growing distrust, alliances began to fray. The lines between loyalty, duty, and personal agendas blurred, leaving the team questioning whose side they were truly on. Shifting allegiances sent a ripple effect through the room, igniting old rivalries and rekindling unresolved tensions. It seemed that every action had a consequence, and with every move, the room grew more charged. No one knew where the power struggles would lead, but the outcome was far from certain. Time seemed to slow as the weight of the moment hung heavy in the air. Every person present, each with their own motivations, fears, and desires, each held the ability to tilt the balance or tip it irreparably. Tensions continued to rise as each person tried to steer the team in their desired direction. Amara's second-in-command stood firm, as did Alara, the foreign ambassador, casting a weighty influence, each influencing others. With their unwavering resolve, they dared to shape the future no matter what the cost. In their midst stood young Ginseng, quiet and lost. Despite their involvement, like many, their loyalties were twisted. A great puzzle with too many disparate pieces, none of which matched any other. They longed for a place to belong and just needed to hold on to what made them believe in something. Yet their hearts still burned with a fire that ignited questions. Amidst the gathering storm, Amara steeled herself to confront the truth. Her team was on the brink of collapse. The comrades she had sworn to protect were now torn apart by conflicting loyalties and distrust. The bonds of trust that had once united them were fraying, and the rifts were deepening. She knew that the decision to proceed with the mission would be a critical one. If they misstep, the consequences could be catastrophic. The enemy's counterattack was relentless, and Amara's team was no match for their superior numbers and firepower. As she walked through the ruin of their once mighty fleet, Amara felt the weight of responsibility settle upon her shoulders. The young girl's words, spoken in whispers, had kindled a fire that now threatened to consume them all. Deep-seated secrets and hidden agendas lurked in every corner, waiting to be exposed. She arrived at the makeshift command center, where Commander Jax Marcel was coordinating their defenses. The grizzled veteran's eyes locked onto Amara's, a flicker of concern dancing in their depths. "Captain, we've received a distress signal from a small outpost near the research facility. We can't raise anyone, but the signature suggests they're being held by the enemy." Amara's instincts screamed at her to abort the mission, to retreat and regroup their forces. But she hesitated, weighed down by the momentum they had built. Her team was on the move and they couldn't stop now. "We hear the outpost," she said, her voice low and measured. "We can't let it fall into enemy hands. Get our recon drone airborne and start sweeping the area for hostiles." Jax nodded, his expression grim. "Aye, Captain, but are we prepared for what we might find? The enemy's moving and their tactics are getting more desperate by the minute." Amara's thoughts flashed to the young girl, her words echoing in her mind like a warning. "The enemy's not just fighting to survive," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're fighting to destroy us." As the team moved out, Amara knew that their fate hung in the balance. One misstep could be fatal, and the future would be forever altered by the choices they made now. Meanwhile, at the heart of the enemy's stronghold, the leader Azir, the ruthless commander, scowled at the young recruit standing before him. Azir's eyes narrowed, his gaze piercing the youth's very soul. "You're the one who spoke up, telling us about the secrets." Azir sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You're a traitor, a rat in our midst. You'll see to it that your comrades pay for your betrayal." The recruit trembled, aware that he was staring into the face of a storm about to break. He thought of his sister, who was among the recruits sworn to execute these orders. The memory of her scared expression flashed before his eyes, and he steeled himself for the road ahead. As Amara's team closed in on the research facility, the sounds of chaos and destruction grew louder. The lines between loyalty and betrayal were blurring, and the very fabric of their society was about to unravel. Amara steeled herself for the battle ahead, fighting the feeling of unease creeping over her. Their battle cry, Veritas, seemed to mock her now as she realized that the truth she had been seeking was slipping further away. "What are we fighting for?" she asked Jax, her voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. Jax turned to her, his expression grim. "We're fighting for a chance to see the world anew, a world where we can rise above the darkness that threatens to consume us. The Aurora Project is more than just research, it's a beacon of hope in the void." Amara felt the faintest glimmer of hope flicker within her, but before she could respond, the comms device crackled to life once more. This time, a weak, desperate voice begged for their mercy, a voice from the small outpost they had discovered on the battlefield. "We have been betrayed, Captain," the voice cried. "They're going to kill us. Please, if you hear this, help us." Amara's team paused, weighing their next move. And in that moment of hesitation, the bombshell that had been waiting in the shadows exploded, showering the floor in a maelstrom of destruction, and chaos. Was it the world itself that was tearing them apart? Or was it the unbridled rage and desperation that left only destruction in its wake? The blurring lines of allegiance swirled around Amara like a malignant entity, making every step a gamble. Should she press forward, rallying the remnants of their forces, or should she concede, retreating to a place of safety and regrouping? The questions swirled around her, a maelstrom of uncertainty that threatened to consume her very being. And yet, amidst the turmoil, she felt a spark within, a fire that burned with an unyielding determination to reclaim the lost ground, to chart a new course through the ruins. As she stood there, her thoughts racing with hesitation, the sound of her comms device crackled to life once more. Commander Marcel's voice came through the static, a low and steady tone that cut through the chaos. "Captain, we have extracted vital data from the enemy's comms array. The information points to a catastrophic event, one that could reshape the very fabric of our reality." Amara's eyes narrowed, her grip on her rifle tightening. "What does it say?" "We're looking at an imminent collapse of the dimensional rifts, a phenomenon that could unravel the fabric of spacetime itself. We need to activate the shutdown protocols, but we're running out of time." The words barely registered, the truth hitting her like a sledgehammer. If the rifts collapsed, everything would be lost. The world as they knew it, the people, the future, vanished. With a deep breath, Amara made her decision. "Gather the team. We'll seal off the facility and activate the shutdown protocols. We'll buy ourselves some time, try to prepare the planet for the worst." As the sounds of artillery fire and explosions grew louder, Amara felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. She was becoming a puppeteer, manipulating the fates of those around her to secure a future she could barely comprehend. In this desolate landscape, where remnants of humanity huddled in desperation, Amara staked her claim. She would lead them, even if it meant leading them to the edge of the abyss. As the rumble of thunder shook the ground beneath her feet, Amara knew that this was it. The world was burning and she was at its center, watching in horror as the flame consumed everything in its path. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, and in that moment, she knew that she was the one standing between the world's very existence and the void. The scent of smoke and desperation hung heavy in the air as Amara Ryder led her team towards the old research facility. The once sterile corridors of the structure now echoed with the rasp of breathing, the rustle of skin scraping against concrete, and the soft crunch of broken glass beneath their feet. Commander Jax Marcel stood at Amara's right, his eyes fixed intently on the comms array, while Lieutenant Alara Patel patrolled the left flank, her hand resting on the grip of her sidearm. The flickering lights of the facility cast long shadows, accentuating the nervous tension etched on every member's face. Their mission was to unearth the secrets the facility held on the Aurora project. Rumors spoke of hidden chambers deep within the facility, containing data that could rewrite the course of their world's history. A sudden crack echoed through the corridor as a wild-eyed member of their team burst into view, a hood pulled up over their head. "You fools!" they spat. "You're walking into a trap. We're not going to find what we're looking for here. The enemy's advanced system will neutralize us before we even reach it." Amara's eyes narrowed and her voice remained steady. "If that's what you're convinced, then we have a decision to make. You stay back or you help us take point on this mission." The member hesitated, their eyes darting back and forth before finally succumbing to Amara's unyielding decision. The team pressed on, navigating the twisted web of corridors that led deeper into the facility. Every door they pushed open creaked, the ground seemed to groan beneath their footsteps, and Amara's intuition screamed that they were being led into a nightmare. Their footfalls echoed as they reached a low-rotation junction, a point of critical mass before turning left towards the central core. "The core is still intact," Commander Marcel called out. "Whatever threats we face will be on the same level, coordinating our defenses." Without warning, another member lunged forward, snatching a fallen communication device off the ground. "Not if I don't get what I want," they shrieked, raising the device triumphantly between the group and a yawning gap. Amara, fast becoming their only anchor of calm, held her breath. The decision to cooperate left itself raw, vulnerable. The stakes hung precariously.